All right, we're rolling, man. Hello, everyone. It's CM Kozeman again, and I hope you're doing all right. A lot has changed since the last time I spoke with you. We are recording towards the end of June 2020, and at the time of recording, the world is in the grip of a global pandemic. Hundreds of thousands of people have died because of a new mysterious illness that has spread from China and has crushed the world's economy and daily life to a degree not seen in our lifetimes before. It's almost apocalyptic. Add to that, there is widespread social confrontation and unrest, particularly in the United States. So I hope all of you, dear friends and viewers, are doing all right. And I hope you all stay safe. Today we're gonna do a nice long video-rich essay that I hope will take your mind off the state of the world around us. And fittingly to our apocalyptic day and age, we're going to be talking about Neon Genesis Evangelion. That amazing cartoon anime series about kids riding in robots and fighting evil creatures called angels that are here to bring about the end of the world. Sounds badass, right? Of course, I'm a newbie to this series. I just watched it on Netflix a few weeks ago, and I was gripped. You know, it had an effect on me, quite unlike any other narrative I had watched before. And that wasn't because of the robots. I think when you watch this series, and I'm talking about the original series, not the extension movies or anything. But when you watch this series, it's obvious that Evangelion is something apart. Even in the world of anime, it stands on its own. Because it tackles a ridiculous premise. You know, kids, school kids fighting in robots. But bit by bit, it does this in such a serious way. And then towards the end of the series, it brings on this whole psychological perspective. And the finale of the series is really something amazing. It breaks the fourth wall. It basically, the director tells us, hey, you guys, stop being nerds, stop being geeks. You got one life. Decide who you are. Own up to it. And you know, stick around. Don't be a punk. And I think that's a really, really strong morale. Of course, to sauce that up, Evangelion is also full of some of the most memorable and fetishable anime characters out there. Countless fans are in love with some of these characters. And they are really well fleshed out, let's say, in both senses of the word. They are really well drawn. There are some really nice seductive scenes and situations in there. But also the character development is done in such a nice way that you really believe these people have these backgrounds. They act in a way because of the things that have happened to them and so on and so forth. But we're not going to be talking about any of that today because YouTube is already full of these philosophical character examination videos and all these, like, why did Shinji Ikari act this way? And, you know, why does Asuka act that way? And who is who, whatever. I mean, it's a desperate way to self-insert into that gripping anime world. And of course, the series is full of, it has spawned an amazing range of merchandise, games, follow-up videos and series. I mean, there's some really bizarre merchandise related to this franchise. You got Evangelion chopsticks and Evangelion razor blades. And there are these really bizarre games where you basically play the role of a social worker taking care of one of these really seductive but also 14 years old characters. And if you take really nice care of her, at the end of the game, she marries you in a parallel universe. So you can guess what kind of fan base this series has. And of course, I would like to iterate once again that I'm really new to this franchise and I have no intention of being authoritative about it. I just want to talk about my perspective on this really well made, really cathartic, beautiful series. Watch it. And our focus, of course, is not going to be on character development or the philosophy. I mean, go Philosophy of Evangelion. On YouTube, you'll find thousands of videos. Instead, we're going to look at the natural history of Neon Genesis Evangelion angels. So, okay, in this world, the world is attacked by waves of really quite bizarre, incomprehensible creatures that are called angels. They come from another dimension. They manifest in Japan, out of all places, and they all try to get to the center of the headquarters of this massive organization that's basically fielding these Eva robots. Now we're gonna be playing this game in two parts. First, I'm gonna self-insert into the world of Evangelion as a kind of researcher trying to determine the evolutionary origins and relationships of these angels in the order that they appear. That's going to be our game. And then also, we're going to look at a whole range of background for these bizarre creatures, because I believe they are some of the best designed creatures out there in all narrative film or video. Not just anime, but basically films as well. You know, nothing comes close. So we're going to examine the biological, or in some cases cultural, background details that I believe might be related to the design of these amazing creatures. So okay, let's begin our journey. Imagine one day I'm sitting around, ring ring, telephone rings, and out comes this call. Kosemano-san. Hi, I say. We are calling from a shady global organization called Nerve, and we want to put your skills into good use. I said, all right, man. What do you want me to do? They say, well, we hear you're one of the best speculative zoology and evolution geeks out there. I said, Anu, I'm honored. And they say, these angel creatures are going to be appearing over Japan. So we want you to be on site, examining them, and try to figure out how these things are related. Because it's going to be goddamn apocalypse out there. I said, well, I'm honored, sir. Thank you, sir. I had no jobs. And with my skills of evolutionary speculation and talking my mouth off, I'm sure you'll have an excellent co-worker by your side. So I fly down to Tokyo 3 and they give me an apartment next to a drunken girl who lives with a penguin and 2 kids, and off I get to work. The angels start to appear and I'm like examining the photographs of stuff as they appear. By the way, before we begin, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to my online friend Jonathan Wocjyk of the bogleech.com fame. because he had a short online article about the designs of these angels, which I was really inspired from, and suffice it to say that his article inspired me to make this video. So please visit him on bogleach.com and read the article as seen in the video description. Thank you, Jonathan. You have a lot of without you this video wouldn't exist, so thank you. But okay, I'm in my apartment. It's a night. Telephone rings. Ring ring. Hello, it's Memo. Memo-san, come down. The angel named Sachiel is attacking. Okay, this is Sachiel. He's the first creature that these kids in robots fight, and he's very strong, and there's something supernatural about it. It's got this red power core and got this kind of bird-like shoulder pads, and it's supernaturally strong, and there's something not quite natural about it. It crushes ICBM missiles with its bare hands, and when the good robot attacks it, it grows a new head and so on and so forth. So it's kind of like a polymorphic entity. Now, culturally speaking, remember our game is in two parts. First, I'm gonna be examining things which I think look like these things in the natural world and in human cultural world too. So of course, this Sachiel angel with its crow-like details, and it's got another strength. So something from its forearm extends in and out like a javelin. So it kind of seems to have this built-in lances. And it reminds me of these Japanese mythological characters called Tengu. And of course, it's no surprise in a Japanese animation, these kind of winged bird-like warrior fighting with a staff or a lance. Let's say that Sachiel looks like it's borrowed a lot in its inspiration from Tengu. So there. Tengu also manifest as guys with really long noses and guys with crow-like heads or masks in some cases. And there's obviously a huge amount of lore in medieval and modern-day Japan about Tengus, and I'm certain there are those of you that know a lot more about them than I do. But let's go back to my work at Nerve. So the first angel is defeated. I'm making my classification table. Here it is, Sachiel, standing alone, because we only have a sample size of 1 at this moment. They tell me, Memo-san, have you figured out how this angel is related? Well, I'm sorry, Major, not really, because we only have seen 1. They say, okay, back to my apartment. Then a few weeks later, the next angel attacks, Shamshel, and it looks like this. I believe it has the best design of all creatures that appear in this franchise. It looks like this kind of hooded figure that's kind of like octopus shape and biological, and it's got 2 whip-like flagella that it uses to attack its victims. Oh, it also floats in the sky, and it's got this really cute, beautiful design. Sugoi! It's like this kind of octopus or a man in a hood. But now we know what this looks like. Shamshel, the angel, seems to have a lot inspired in its design from this guy, which is a real-life octopus-type creature called Vampiroteuthis infernalis. So this animal really lives in the world's oceans. It's a really extreme deep-sea creature. It's related to octopi, but it's not quite an octopi for the following reason. Now, oops. Do you see my arrow? Okay. You notice that Vampiroteuthis has these tiny tentacles that issue from its body. And these are distinct from the 8 octopus-like arms it has. And it's got a huge eyeball. Now we go back to Shamshel. The filaments are there. The huge eyeball is there. This, by the way, is the power core that almost all of these angels seem to have. And the inspiration is clear to see. But what a cool design, huh? Even Vampiroteuthis has these like eye spot-like things in its back. And as Shamshel, as you look at it from above, it's got similar things on its hood. So there's design score 1. Another parallelism I see is between the so-called Flatwoods monster that a few kids claim to see in the United States back in the 1950s. It was described as a giant 3-meter tall hooded figure with a red face and glowing red eyes. And obviously the Flatwoods monster was probably an owl, and it's not included in this presentation, but if you look at the issue of science fiction books or magazines that came out during that time, you'll realize that this description really looks like some alien drawings that were published before. But Vampiroteuthis and the Flatwoods monster really make the spiritual mix of this creature's amazing design. By the way, this is my favorite creature in all of Evangelion. So, I'm back at my classification table. Now we got Sachiel. We got another. Now we got the other angel added in. So this one looked like a kind of quasi-robotic skeletal thing. This looks more like an organic dude. Now it still doesn't look like anything because we only have a sample size of 2. But just you wait. Okay, the third angel appears. Oh, by the way, the numbers are different because in the series there's 2 more angels that appeared before. But for the sake of our presentation, we haven't seen them, so we're not factoring them in our sophisticated calculations. But it's number 5, but it's the third angel that I get to see. Ramiel. It looks like this floating crystal tetrahedron that's basically got this amazing drill that it uses to drill down for kilometers into the secret bunker that the Nerve organization has. It's also the organization I am working for in this self-insert part of our story. It looks like a virus. Oh, it also has this energy beam, but our heroes defeat it with this amazing mega sniper rifle that draws its power from all of Japan. And they blast it, and it dies. Now, design-wise, even though it looks quite crystalline, we got some crystalline creatures of our own in our planet. They're just really small. This angel reminds me of these dinoflagellates, these microscopic algae with a silica-based shell. But there are also other completely unrelated group of microorganisms called radiolarians. And you could really imagine, if you see my arrow, something like this floating above the city, or this, bing, 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 and then our heroes have to shoot them too. Also, it looks like a virus because of its drill. It drills down to the core, and I wonder what would have happened if it had gotten down there. Would it have injected it with some sort of genetic material, or just destroyed the site, you know? But okay, back at Nerve, I'm busy working with our classification table. This blonde scientist with lipstick comes. Finally, Memo-san, you are building a picture. I said, hi, we got this humanoid skeletal things in one group, this soft-bodied invertebrate kind of things in another group, and crystal angels. So based on my calculations, the next angel could fall in one of these categories. So prepare accordingly. And for the first time, my work at Nerve was paying off. I felt like I had a good job classifying these goddamn angels. I was feeling lonely though. I still had to make some friends, but I was just immersing myself in my work. All these people were just, they're Japanese. I didn't speak the same language as them, and I don't think I could impress them at this stage. Anyways, the next angel attacks. This one's a Gaghiel. These names all sound kind of like Old Testament style. As we will see, some of them really have name counterparts in the Old Testament and in the myth of other religions. But Gaghiel looks like gagging on something. It's this guy. It's this aquatic sea monster angel. Gigantic, huge, enormous. It's the largest our heroes have faced so far. If you want a sense of scale, this is an aircraft carrier, and this is one of our mechas. And this is Gaghiel. It's got this power core, once more, only it's in its throat. So it has to be gagged with something to be destroyed. And it's got this huge oversized mouth. And one of our hot new characters defeats it. But this is what it looks like from the top. So Gaghiel is a kind of plot device. They just show two battleships down its throat, and Gaghiel gags on them, and it's destroyed. By the way, there's an interesting design choice here. You see this thing here. Look at my arrow. It looks like a face. Reminds me of the face that first angel had. But this is also a soft-bodied aquatic angel. The design is almost 1-to-1 borrowed from the design of these octopus species called Tremoctopus, the blanket octopus that lives in our world seas. Our planet is a very strange place, ladies and gents. I mean, this is one design inspiration. Another design inspiration is obviously this aquatic marine reptiles called Kronosaurus. Had huge jaws. And for a long time, this animal was pictured as this gigantic killer aquatic beast. The jaws look a bit like this. But if you put enough flesh on its body, it probably looked like an elongated double penguin, really smooth. Still had these huge jaws, but I don't think you would have seen these teeth unless its mouth opened up to swallow you. And one more detail. It looks like the giant goblin shark, Mitsukurina species. The kind of pro-shaped head really looks like one of the design influences for this angel. And it also reminds me of Taumatictis, this very obscure species of deep-sea anglers. What makes it so special is that the lure, in which in other anglerfish you see it at the top of their heads, but not this guy. Taumatictis has its lure in its mouth, much like Gaghiel's inner mouth power core. But a lot of influences, and it's really nice, and it's one of the things I would like you to consider as we keep doing this with the rest of Evangelion. I mean, this is a cartoon series. It's a beautiful cartoon series, but a cartoon series nevertheless. And I would like you to think about everything else in our world that kind of goes into the background of how these things are designed. Because Evangelion was designed and made by people, geniuses in their field. But it's really nice when you think about what they may have drawn influence from. And if you just look at the natural history of our own planet with a similar eye, I think it's really entertaining. But anyways, we go back to our classification table. My days at Nerve were going really well. Now, this angel looks like that previous floating one. It's got this organic, squishy body shape. So I would classify it under that group. But nothing is set in stone yet. Because one thing that's troubling me is this little mask it has. And it's almost the same as the little mask the first angel had. But let's just wait. Let's wait for the data to coagulate. Okay, then the other angel appears, Israfel, the angel of twin fighters. So this is just a plot device. It's this generic angel, really looks like the first angel. One of our heroines now is really cocky, and she goes at it all of her own, but only succeeds at splitting it in two. So now they have to deal with two angels, and basically our characters learn teamwork. Anyways, this is just a plot device, and this is also a common theme I keep seeing in Japanese TV shows and computer games. You always have this kind of twin fighter at some point or the other. In the Mortal Kombat series, for example, it was Scorpion and Sub-Zero. You know, they really look similar. Only the colors are different, and that seems to be a thematic echo going on there. So I don't have much to say about the design of this angel, but in its naming, they've really done something extraordinary, because Israfel is also the name given to the angel that would bring about the apocalypse in Muslim belief. And if you just examine artwork of Judgment Day angels in Muslim art, you always see Israfel being represented with a trumpet. Sometimes it's a trumpet with 7 or 6 tips. So the story goes that Israfel appears at the end of the world, blows the trumpet once, everybody dies. Then blows the trumpet again, everybody gets up, back to life. So it's this kind of really apocalyptic and scary statue. And even though I'm not Muslim, I grew up in a Muslim majority country. And in Turkey, we were always fed with stories of Israfel. And it was a really scary figure. And in Islamic art, there's surprisingly many depictions of Israfel. And it's just scary. Once again, this seems to be 6 trumpets. This one is going all the way extra. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9 trumpets. But it's really scary. And I mean, Islamic religion is really poor in images. So you keep hearing these stories about Judgment Day, Judgment Day, Judgment Day. Then you see one of these images. And even though these images are very simple looking, stylized, lack of perspective, something about that lack of perspective and simplicity really makes you shit your pants. Of course, let's not get started about other angels in Islamic art, because there's some really scary examples out there. If you know your Evangelion, this figure will be similar to you. Something like this appears at the end of Evangelion, which is a tie-in film, and brings about the end of the world. And then this is something else. These 2 examples are from an Ottoman era book called the Davetname, written by this author named Firdevsi. And the Davetname is all about summoning all these angels and jinns, and there's a whole depth of this mythology that I could go on and on. This figure is kind of a jinn or an angel you summon to ward off evil curses or something, and this is the mother of all jinns. But I'll just leave it there because it's really scary, and plus this thing is so deep that I could probably do 10 videos about obscure angels in Islamic mythology and still not be done with it. But let's go back to Nerve. Oh my god, we're back at Nerve. My work was going well. I really helped them defeat this angel by saying, it looks like the first angel, so maybe you should use similar weapons. And then the new Eva pilot came and said, "Oh, Kosemano-san, you really did well. I'm really impressed by your knowledge of your bizarre zoological and historical facts. Why don't we go on a date too? And you tell me more about strange snakes and frog." I said, "Asuka-san, I really respect you, but look at my forehead." And she was like, "Nani?" I'm like, "Do you see the words pedophile written there? I'm sorry, but you're 14. I just can't cross that boundary, It's a no-go for me." And then she slapped me on the face and said, "Baka, I'm not interested in you anyways." So anyways, off I went with my conscience intact, let's just say. But in our classification table, this Israfel angel is nothing like the Islamic Israfel, and it seems to be quite related to the first angel, so we can solidly plop it in that family. Now you see clades being built up. You see organic angels here. You see crystalline angels. You see these warrior type quasi-robotic angels. But wait a minute. Now we see patterns emerging. Remember that I told you this mask here had really troubled me. So maybe the similar shape is just a parallelism. And this angel, the aquatic angel, Gaghiel, that Asuka defeated, was probably one of these warrior type angels that had evolved for an aquatic existence, because the face was the same and the body had taken on these marine adaptations, but essentially it was something like a penguin or a whale. It was a terrestrial organism adapted for a marine existence, and its similarity to this guy was just a coincidence. Parallel evolution, I told everyone at Nerve. So we're changing our classification table. We got 3 solid clades now. Let's say warrior angels here, invertebrate types here, crystal types, and then the next angel appears. Sandalphon. This is just a throwaway angel, but we learned something really interesting here. When they discovered this angel's egg in a volcano, it's about to grow, it looks like a human embryo. But when it grows, it looks like nothing like a human. It looks like a prehistoric organism. It looks like Anomalocaris. So let's rewind a bit. Anomalocaris was, imagine like, open your arms wide, okay? And imagine this kind of strange animal that vaguely looks like an insect. It's got a pineapple-shaped mouth that chops things up. And it's got 2 claw-like mouth parts here that help it grip and tear apart prey. And its body consists of these fin-like waving limbs, and it just swims about. And Anomalocaris was one of the Cambrian era animals. It was one of the most ancient, it was one of the first large-bodied predators to appear in our world. And even though it looks like an arthropod, it probably wasn't related to anything alive today, with maybe the exception of velvet worms, but that's a whole other story. It's a really epoch-defining fossil. When this animal was first discovered, they thought its limb was the body of a prawn-like animal, and the mouth was a jellyfish-like animal. You can't really see it here, but it's kind of like a disc-like thing. Looks like this, basically. And the body was interpreted as a big sea cucumber type animal. So different parts of its body were interpreted as different animals. Then a fossil like this came about, and everyone was like, God damn it. Because this animal appeared close to the origin of proper multicellular animals. And it showed us that within a short time, animal life on Earth had grown and diversified to include some pretty bizarre forms that seemingly left no descendants. Cambrian era, the Cambrian explosion. So in terms of design, this angel, Sandalphon, really looks like Anomalocaris. Here are his eyes, the mouth, the body. And we can probably classify it as one of the invertebrate type creatures. And they defeated pretty easily. Cold water causes shrinkage. There's a volcano fight that this is killed in. And anyways, but something about this embryo is perplexing. But we'll get there. Why is it human shaped at first? Then it grows into this? How? I was confused, and I spent many sleepless nights at Nerve trying to sort out this mystery. Oh well. Then the next angel attacks, Matarael. It's this kind of daddy long legs type of gigantic animal that steps over mountains. Looks like a big daddy long legs. Harder daddy. But it's got this eye at the bottom. And it really looks like it's made out of ceramic or something. It doesn't really look like anything natural. It looks like it's made out of plastic or ceramic, but it's gigantic in size. And the eye weeps this acid tears that melt everything, and it was trying to drill down to the base, much like the previous crystal angel did. Doesn't succeed though. Our heroes go brrrt, and it dies. But obviously you can see the influence from real life daddy long legs. Now the name daddy long legs is used for spiders, proper spiders with really long legs. But these guys, the opilions, also known as harvestmen, are related to spiders, but they're actually a whole other arachnid group. They have one body segment, much like Matarael. They got pretty big eyes, but they're harmless. They don't weep acid, as far as I know. But some of these guys, especially in the tropics, really are examples of evolutionary flexibility. Now they got this basic body shape, one body, a few legs, long legs. But they really kind of do heavy metal things, like really gnarly looking horns and mouth parts, bright coloration. And some of them, this looks like some Evangelion fan art, but it's actually an actual species of daddy long legs that's found in Central America, I believe. You see the body has been warped into the shape of a triangle. And it's amazing because it's really one segment. The rear legs are really strong, so the muscles that control them are really big. So the whole body has been warped into this triangle shaped, and to top it off, it's got these neon colors. It's just really awesome. I just study these guys in details. There are some out there that really make this look conservative in comparison. Oh well. So where do we put Matarael in our classification table? I believe, sir, we have to create a whole new group of angels. Maybe a bit close to the crystal angels, because they seem somehow like metallic or ceramic based. So maybe there's a relation there. Maybe this crystal angel was a version of this family that had lost its legs somehow. I don't know, but they seem to be closely related. Thank you, Kesemino-san, said the chief scientist lady. But she was really cold and distant, and I really didn't want to, like, overstep our professional relationship there. There are some strange things going on at Nerve. All these kids were being, like, almost abused, but they had to do it. They had to work with these robots to fight these angels and save us all. But there seemed to be some other secrets going around, but I kept quiet. I kept my head down. Alright. Then the next angel attacks, and this is either my first or second favorite angel, Sahaquiel. It's like this. It was really amazing. I mean, I was watching with Major Misato and all the other guys, and bloop, this thing appears on space. It's really this wild design. It looks like one of these sticky toys you throw to windows and, blip, 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 they dangle down. But it was kilometers large. It just seemed to be this inert, huge body that was about to plummet down and slap the earth. And because of its name, I also thought it reminded me of Shaquille O'Neal. It was going to slam dunk on the planet. Sahaquiel. So what does it look like? Obviously, it doesn't look like any organism. But does it? Study its arm-like extensions and the bizarre bright colors and the eye-like things. It really looks like it's borrowed from the spirit of these leaf-tailed geckos. You see the eye and the eyelash-like fleshy extensions are almost the same. Here are the eyes. And also study the hands, let's call them. They're almost the same. Also study the orange bright color. It's almost the same. So this species of geckos live in Madagascar. They're called Uroplatus. They've got several species and they're all bizarre. And Sahaquiel seems to be designed with a lot of inspiration from these guys, but really twisted and extended into a surreal extreme, let's just say. By the way, that's another cool thing you could do if you're like on your own world design or monster design projects. Try to look at nature, but try not to copy the shapes, but the overall feeling of the creature. Try to make something really abstract out of, let's say, a wolf or a special kind of spider or something, and then you could arrive at really weird and counterintuitive designs like Sahaquiel here. Oh, it's my favorite. Also, something from the design, it seems to be slightly inspired by the starfish aliens we see in this 1956 films. It's really interesting. It's called Warning from Space, and I believe you could find and watch it. And I said, Misato-san, this Sahaquiel we encountered really seems to be similar to this old film. And then Misato-san, she's here by the way, she was almost tearing up, saying like, my father used to watch that film. And then she said, do you want to have sake with us tonight or something? I said, sorry Misato-san, I live next door to you and I know that it wouldn't be right for the kids, and I just have to devote myself to my duties classifying these angels for you. Let's just be friends and we can do the drinking when we have defeated them all. Plus, I didn't tell her, but obviously she had a drinking problem. I just didn't want to get involved. There seemed to be too much baggage there. So my opportunities for social life at Nerve were steadily diminishing. The kids were alright, but I was like a big brother to them. This Asuka girl kept harassing me, but no, I ain't no pedo. And then the scientist lady, Richan, she was too distant and there's something dark hidden there. And Misato-san was very cheerful, but I knew from living next door to them that she had a drinking problem. So I kept to myself, drawing my creatures and studying, busying myself with work. And in my work, it emerged that Sahaquiel is probably related to this previous Matarael or whatever, Daddy Longlegs. Except that this daddy was coming down to slap the earth. But good thing our kids defeated it. So we got 4 groups now. The warrior angels with the aquatic subfamily seen here. The invertebrate angels, their anatomy looks similar. The ceramic angels, let's just say, they're just out of this world. And this crystal dude. Bing, 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 bing. Bing, bing, bing. Something is interesting there. But a picture, a topology is beginning to appear. So the next time, maybe we'll have another one of these. I don't know. But it seems that whoever is sending us these angels is slowly abandoning the warrior and the organic design and is going towards more like artificial looking creatures. So that was my official memo to Nerve headquarters. Keep a lookout. And they of course fed all my predictions to these 3 supercomputers they had. And then of course the next day the supercomputer was hacked by this angel called Ireul. In the movie, this is just a plot device to have this really exciting hacker episode. It's like this rotting parasite that spreads all around, but it also has these magic hacking skills, much like a slime mold on our world. So slime molds grow really rapidly over surfaces, and when they find a nutrient source like the ones you see here, they make really strong connections to them, and the other connections that don't lead to food are weeded out. So by this dumb logic, they can build really intricate and innovative networks. In fact, there was experiments. This is real life, by the way. This is not my Evangelion pitiful self-insert. In real life, there's been experiments where they made a map of Tokyo subway spots, subway stops with bits of food, and then they released a slime mold in there, and the slime mold almost replicated the subway map of Tokyo entirely. Perhaps even it was more efficient. But that's the kind of dumb logic and brute strength that slime molds have. And aside from that, I can't really find any parallels for this angel. But at Nerve, I was really having a bad day. This creepy dude who was heading the organization briefly came up to me and said, "Because of you, we were expecting a plastic or a artificial angel, but now we were hacked. Kasamano-san, up your game or there will be consequences." This was the director of the whole thing, Gendo Ikari, and I could really feel my balls retracting into my body like a plug suit going into an EVA. This guy was really creepy, and for the first time I had a sleepless night. But then the other angel appeared, Leliel. Oh, this guy's my favorite, because we're gonna go on a wild tangent ride with Leliel. Are you ready? This is Leliel, or rather still, this is Leliel's shadow, because the actual Leliel is like this endless black hole that spreads across the ground, And this three-dimensional artifact is the bizarre paradimensional shadow that appears above the black hole. And back then, I mean, my work at Nerve was vindicated, because I told them, yeah, we got this hacker angel, but be prepared for more artificial or non-organic looking angels. So thanks in part to my advice, they were able to defeat it. Now obviously Leliel's design is based on a black hole. It's also based on these other Acme portable holes. You used to have a lot of them in old cartoons. Basically it's this kind of stretchy rubber black hole that people can carry around. It's these silly cartoon tricks. But these holes made a really memorable appearance in the 1993 film Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and it's just fun. But let's look at the pattern of Leliel. Where had I seen this pattern before? Okay, so in military history, especially around the First World War, there was something called dazzle camouflage. The Brits and the Americans were quick to adapt this. So the idea was, if you could paint a ship in a counterintuitive, really sharp black and white pattern, it would actually make it less visible out in the open seas, because the sea is a dynamic place of dynamic, shifting colors, shades, and counter shades. And by the way, this is the most British Empire photo you could ever see. It's a British torpedo boat or a ship, I don't know. And just look at these officers. There's a lot of ships that were experimented with using this dazzle camouflage. And that's obviously where the inspiration for Leliel's strange parashadow patterning came. Just look at it. This is beautiful, by the way. I mean, there's a lot of things to research about dazzle camouflage. And here we discover this really unique thing. Because dazzle camouflage was first suggested by a group of artists. And it's still being used today. I mean, especially for contemporary urban combat, there's been experiments with tanks using dazzle camouflage. And it really makes sense. I mean, in an urban environment, this kind of tank is much harder to see than a green block, you know. So it's still going on. And there's some juicy, delicious paintings of First World War era marine and wartime artists with dazzle camouflage. Arthur Lismer, great artist, has this amazing series of dazzle camouflaged ships. And Sir Norman Wilkinson, another maritime artist, also has this amazing image. Actually, this painting shows us the strength of dazzle camouflage really well, don't you think? And then there was another artist, Abbot Anderson Thayer, who was one of the first people to suggest this scheme. He suggested that camouflage in nature is based not on matching colors, but it's based on counter shading, because many animals see in black and white. Many predators see in black and white. So as long as you got the counter shading right, you could really blend in. And these are Abbot Anderson Thayer's works. He has drawn this camouflaged bird, and it's, in his perspective, it really makes the bird almost disappear among the shadows and bright hues of leaf litter. And he was one of the first artists to suggest dazzle camouflage for use in ships. And he has some amazing paintings. And I mean, as an artist, he suggested that the supposedly bright colors in some animals we see today actually help them disappear. For example, he believed that the flamingos' pink bodies and reddish wings help them disappear against a sunset Another pinkish bird called a spoonbill, he believed, used the same trick to disappear in the sunset when browsing. And the peacock, something we know as one of the most flamboyantly colored creatures out there. According to... Oh, there's an airplane. Just let's wait for it to pass while we admire these amazing paintings by Tayyar. So Tayyar believed that the peacock, one of the most flamboyantly patterned animals out there, actually used this pattern to completely disappear in the hues of a jungle. And he probably wasn't wrong, you know. He is a great artist. And now we get to the scary part. Before he invented dazzle camouflage, which was the inspiration for this angel in Neon Genesis Evangelion, what could our artist Abbot Anderson Tayyar have been a painter of? Let it sink in, people. This guy made his entire career painting angels before he came up with this pattern, which was used in this show about supernatural angels attacking our planet. This is one of the times when research really shows what a joyful, succulent adventure it can be. You discover these patterns and parallelisms, and it's just amazing. Strange are the forces that guide one's hand in the name of creativity. Is it not? And this is another painting by Tayyar of his 3 children. And he loved his daughter the most, and his other son and other daughter are looking at him. But his favorite daughter is in the light, the brightest, and the other kids look somewhat neglected and resentful, don't they? It's almost like our characters in Neon Genesis Evangelion. Of course, this is just a parallelism that I could infer after watching and liking this show so much. But really, if you're watching this show, please make a fan art of Shinji, Asuka, and Rei Ayanami in this manner. You know, don't do some beating a dead horse with a stick kind of anime schlick. Just research the history of art, the lives of artists, the naturalists, and the things they study. It's extremely rich and it's extremely rewarding. But let's go out of this tangent and let's go back to my work at Nerve. The nights were getting longer and we were all getting somewhat frazzled, but I could successfully classify Leliel with the other crystal angel under this kind of group of preternatural angels. But then Rit-chan came, cold blonde lady smoking a cigarette, and I said, even though they are similar, Memokun, don't you think this is still somewhat different? I said, I'll think about it. But then the next angel attacked, Bardiel. This is just a plot device. It's this other parasitic angel that sticks onto another one of these robots just so that we could see a robot versus robot battle in Evangelion. So I'm not gonna go too much into detail. There are of course numerous parasites in our world that work this way. The famous cordyceps. Now everybody's heard of this one because of that game, The Last of Us, which has similar fungus zombies infesting people's brains. And cordyceps really, in some cases, hacks its prey's brain and controls them and makes them sit still so that the fungus can blossom and spread its spores. There are other parasites, of course, the most famous being Lephochloridium paradoxum, the snail eye fluke. Okay, so you see this cute snail with the bright eyes? Guess what? The eyes aren't eyes. They're actually these dudes riding its brain and piloting the snail so that it can be eaten by a bird. They make it look more attractive, brighter to spot, and they make the snail wander about in the open so that birds could snap it up, so that these guys could move on to their next host, which is the bird. And the entire world of parasites is full of so many examples. There are flies that do this, wasps that do it, other things. And I could just give you a whole 3-hour long example of mind control by parasites. But we'll get to that later. Let's go to our angel classification table. Now I was pretty confident this is another parasite angel, classified alongside Ireul, which is, I think, the worst named character in the entire Evangelion franchise. But now we got these groups, you see. We got the warrior types, organic types, ceramic types, paranatural types, and parasitic types, not worms. Then the next angel appears, Zeruel. Now, I was telling everyone to expect more preternatural types, but instead Zeruel is a back to basics type of angel, but it's extremely strong. It looks like a quadriplegic. It's got this tiny head, and its arms fall down like Japanese scrolls or toilet paper, and they become these really sharp, devastating arms, tentacles, and can just slice about everything. Now, they almost defeated our heroes, but in the last instant, this boy was refusing to get on his Eva and fight. And I told him, look, man, why aren't you fighting? And he was like, I hate this life. Everybody is trying to use me only because I use these robots. I said, man, look, if you don't do this, we're all gonna die. How about I give you a treat? If you do this, I know you'll be breaking some of your own promise to yourself. But that's how life works. Sometimes you just have to break promises, because life is generative. You will come up with another resolution, another resolve, and by doing this, by breaking old promises and making new ones, you grow. And that's it, I could die now or a few years later, I don't care, man. But if you do this, you have a bright future, man. Soon these angels are gonna stop. Come on, Shinji, get on the mech and fight. And he did. And he fought like a demon. He fought actually so hard that he tore out the angel's heart and ate it. But hey, kids got some hot blood in him, I guess. Anyways, let's go to the influences which I sensed behind the design of this angel. It looks like a quadriplegic floating about. Somehow reminded me of these Chinese vampires that you have in Chinese folklore. The Chinese vampire jumps about with rigid legs. Sometimes it even flies. And it's got this scroll hanging in front of its hat. This is perhaps the most famous depiction of a Chinese vampire in film from this movie called Crazy Safari, and was one of the many sequels to this film called The Gods Must Be Crazy. The Chinese vampire drops into Kalahari Desert, and the Bushmen try to sort out the problem with this vampire. But I believe there is something similar about the design, but I'm not so sure. By the way, let me make it clear. In this series, I'm never trying to guess the ideas of the actual designers. I'm just bringing my own perspective into this, so deal with it. Anyways, it also reminded me of a UFO encounter. Now, there's a very rich folklore of UFO and alien encounters in our world, and sometimes the beings reported by people who claim to have encountered or have been abducted by aliens are just bizarre. And in 1977, this guy named Antonia Larubia in Brazil claimed to have been taken up to a spaceship by this group of aliens with pineapple-like skin, tiny heads, tentacle-like arms, and monopodal legs. And I believe, if forced to bet, this would be my bet on a real-life alien encounter. Because, there's just no way an alien on another planet needs to look like a human with big eyes. This is a very original alien design, and it's very homegrown. It's very vernacular by an actual claimed alien contactee. Of course, it was probably a lie. But still, the lie has some truth in it, in the form of this amazing design that somehow looks like this tentacle-armed angel from Neon Genesis Evangelion. And now this was the break of my career at Nerve, And I was like, you see, thanks to my classification table, we could immediately classify Zeruel as one of these warrior types. Looks quite similar. Wears its power plant on its chest, and it's got this tiny head. And because of the work I had done with the previous angels, the Nerve scientists were able to devise strategies which enabled Shinji's friends to hold off Zeruel until I gave the pep talk to Shinji, and he went out there and completely fucked it up. So good work, Shinji. And at the end he says, Memo-san really motivated me. I was like, oh man, it's nothing, man. You just grow a backbone of your own, man. You don't need these girls and women hanging around. Just do your own thing. Come over once. I'll show you how to draw aliens and shit. Have a hobby. That always helps. I'll make speculative evolution your hobby, Shinji. Now stop masturbating too much, kid. Anyways, back to our talk. Then something else happened. You see, this angel, Zeruel, was floating. Much like this guy. And then I came with this radical classification decision, removing this crystal angel from that family and actually forming it as a kind of hyper-mineralized floating angel of the warrior type. In fact, you could see a distinct line of evolution leading. Zeruel was floating, you see. So this was a hyper-evolved version of Zeruel. Maybe there was even a humanoid body inside that shell. But it's like the same thing with less arms, less heads, and more shells. And anyways, this is just a trick I made on my video to show how evolutionary classification changes. Because real-life natural history is actually full of examples like this. Take barnacles, for example. Many people believed barnacles were mollusks, like limpets or stuff, Then it emerged that barnacles were actually hyper-reduced versions of things like crabs and lobsters. They had just specialized so much for a stationary life that they were just basically, imagine a crab with a huge shell and degenerated organs. That was what barnacles were. So I tried to do a kind of plot twist with my Neon Genesis Evangelion classification table. Barnacles, huh? Said Ritchan. I said, hi. I knew something was wrong, she said, in this cold, dark demeanor. And I said, all right, lady, whatever you say. Just don't think I didn't take your warning. You know, I listened to you, and that's why I reclassified this guy. So now this is a crystalline version of the warrior angels. And this guy was like 4-dimensional or 8-dimensional Alex Jones bullshit anyways. So it's now in a family of its own, of its preternatural dimension shifting angels. And then this is our classification table. Warrior angels, aquatic subfamily, crystalline robotic subfamily, organic angels, ceramic angels with one eye, multidimensional angels, and parasite angels. Really, I wouldn't say this is a tree of life, because these things don't seem to reproduce, but they seem to have these groups that keep repeating. It's like poetry, it rhymes. And anyways, that was a tough day. We had defeated Zeruel at the nick of time. I was vindicated. My theories were uploaded. We had classified and reclassified all the angels, but at what cost, man? Slowly, we were all breaking apart. Anyways, then the other angel came. Arael was like a floating lightning bird. And unlike a bird, Arael could shoot beams of light which could push someone into the deepest holes of depression. And that was it. I mean, a seemingly unique design, you know. But you'd be surprised. Let's snap out of our story for a second. You'd be surprised that there are things on our planet that look almost the same. Almost the freaking same. I kid you not. It's called red sprite lightning. Look at this. It appears on high pressure clouds in certain parts of the world, and it's just it kind of flickers like an aurora briefly, and it's gone. But look at it. Red sprite lightning, angel. Red sprite lightning, angel. Even this kind of angular wing-like, it's amazing. And isn't it amazing how weird things there are in the world that we haven't even begun to scratch the surface yet? In fact, I could make a whole podcast about unusual meteorological phenomena. Red sprite lightning has its own subfamilies. This is the normal one. Once again, very similar to that angel, but unlike the angel, you don't fall into suicidal depression. And there's even a subtype of this, supposedly known as jellyfish red sprite angel. Imagine looking up at the sky and you see this. It's straight out of Evangelion. But actually it's the other way around. Reality is weirder even than the mind-effing wonder of Neon Genesis Evangelion. Reality is the best, because it's got so many secrets left unexplored. So back at our lab and nerve, I was trying to keep cheerful, but everybody was kind of feeling down because Asuka was really depressed after her encounter with this lightning angel. I tentatively classified it under this same group with Leliel. Seems to be something supernatural going on there. But we need more data. Need more data, sir. Let's just set them a bit apart, you know. So they're like this is a main group of polydimensional angels, but these guys are more psychically active, let's just say. Anyways, then the other psychic angel attacked, Armisael. It was this huge rotating UFO type DNA strain, and it really broke my heart because this was the angel that killed Rei Ayanami. I was so sad. It could change shape into this bizarre electric snake, and even if when our heroes shot at it with the rocket missile and knifed it, still couldn't kill it. I was so depressed. I was so down. Armisael killed my favorite girl in all of Evangelion. F you, Armisael. Armisael looked like one of these horsehair worms, actually, down to the way it completely entered its victim's body like some bizarre tentacle hentai. But there are worms like this in our planet, ladies and gents, believe it or not. There are these parasitic worms on insects, thank heavens. So it's this huge worm, very thin but very long, much like Armisael, and it gestates in these large-bodied insects, and they make the insects walk into a body of water, and they crawl out of them. And it's really supernatural to see. And just Google horsehair worm video, and you see the entire length of the worm spilling out of the insect like some bizarre caricature. Now that's the first reference I have to Armisael. The other comes towards this wheel-like shape that it first had. Now this reference you can find in biblical Old Testament stuff. But of course there's something else. My mistake. So before the other reference, Armisael's snake form also looks like these giant siphonophores. There are these colonial jellyfish-like animals known as siphonophorans, and they just add up like an endless conga train. And they are some of the longest animals in the ocean, longer than a blue whale. And this is one such colony, over 45 meters long, seen from the sky, an endless white worm. There are versions of them that live in the deep sea and can glow in the dark. Apolemia lanosa, the giant deep sea siphonophore. It's not 45 meters long, but it's still quite long. A colonial animal. Each segment is a separate jellyfish-like animal and feeds on its own. And this way, the animal is scalable, let's say. And now the time for prayers has come where I am. So we are moving indoors. Oops. I really don't want to cut it because I don't want to deal with editing later on. Oh, having a nice day at Nerve, investigating siphonophores and classifying angels. Use this time to grab a cup of coffee, guys, because the call for prayers is sounding out there, and I'm moving to a quiet place indoors. And the way I do it is as one big ass screen recording, because I don't want to deal with editing. But okay, we're quiet here, we're good, and everything is alright. We're ready to go on recording. Still recording.
Ready to go.
Yeah, my wife says hi. She really had a hard time last few weeks competing with Neon Genesis Evangelion for my attention, so thanks to her. Anyways, let's go back. Where were we? Armisael attacked. It killed my favorite character and I was sad. And Armisael came in two shapes, a freaking goddamn worm and a wheel with eyes that spun and saw in every direction. And they called him Cherubim, and a flaming sword. Anyways, this is just trying to quote the Old Testament to the best of my capabilities. But now let's look at the Old Testament aspect of this angel. It really looks like the visions of Ezekiel, the Old Testament prophet who saw rotating wheels within wheels. And this vision really seems to have something common to this shape you see here. Obviously, I believe the creators may have been inspired by the visions of Ezekiel. And just Google this thing, religious art, ancient and modern, is full of fascinating images of the vision of Ezekiel. So there's something like this wheels within wheels rotating and the throne next to them. And next to that, there are these like 4 beasts with different heads and eyes. It's really like a head trip. And it's really something terrifying, worthy of Neon Genesis Evangelion. Now, of course, it's been interpreted numerous times. For example, this great artist, Alexei Akdiniov, I hope I didn't butcher his name, has this really cold, bizarre, and spine-chilling modernist vision of the vision of Ezekiel. The wheels within wheels and the 4 creatures with different heads and the throne. And then, of course, contemporary religious folk art, especially in the United States, sometimes interprets this vision as a UFO. In fact, the vision of Ezekiel is one of the heaviest ammunitions out there in the armory of the ancient aliens proponents. They believe that what Ezekiel described here was actually a UFO encounter. Could be, looks like a drone with 4 fans. This guy draws it as a UFO. It looks like a drone with these 4 fans carrying aloft this one dude. And then here is another modern contemporary religious artwork. Ezekiel saw the wheel. Ezekiel saw the wheel. And look how similar it is to Armisael. Of course, they say these things. They say they've seen a UFO and stuff. But, never underestimate the strength of imagination that people have had throughout the ages. I don't think Ezekiel saw and described a UFO. It was a religious vision. Maybe it was written just to scare the people reading it. Or maybe the guy just had a really rich imagination. Did you think about that? Because imagination is not like technology. It doesn't improve with time. It's almost always remained at this high bar. And everybody has had it throughout the ages. The dudes who compiled Ezekiel's vision in the Old Testament had it. The creators of Neon Genesis Evangelion have it. Never underestimate the power of human imagination and human symbolism. So that's a side note I have for you. Now let's go back to our office life at Nerve. Now we could successfully classify this as a second angel of the psychic type. Very similar to the previous one, actually. And this was another case when my theory of angels was vindicated. There's a psychic type and it could come again. Guess what? It came again. And here's our classification table so far. We got warrior types, aquatic subtype, crystalline subfamily, slowly evolving into more robotic, featureless, barnacle-like angel type. We got these 2 organic ones. We got these eye types. We got this dimension shifting kind, plus the psychic ones, and we got the parasites. We're slowly but surely building a congruent topology of the natural history of Neon Genesis Evangelion. Then the last angel came, and it was a super hot boy. And I'd given little Shinji a pep talk, but I really couldn't get through to him. He was really lonely, and this is just a human, basically, who had this kind of love and attention towards this boy that nobody ever showed. And he came in an exactly human form, which was really surprising, because all the other angels we'd seen before were weird, inhuman things. This was a proper human. In fact, it died like a human being. All Shinji had to do was to pop its head off. Really tragic and traumatic. But it obviously is a reference to Satan himself. The final angel, the worst angel, is actually the most human one. Even the pose, it appears in this beautiful engraving by Gustav Dor, is really similar to the way this character first appears in the anime. And there are many depictions of Satan at that time. This was for John Milton's Paradise Lost. Satan looking at a bunch of snakes, much like Tabriz or Kaworu was looking down at poor Shinji with a mixture of pity and love. Anyways, what to do with this thing? I mean, it completely broke my classification table. Was it one of the warrior types? Hyper evolved into a humanoid shape? But nah, this was its own thing. But remember that this angel, when they show the larval version of this angel, it was like a human in an egg. So that gave me an idea. Maybe the humanoid shape is actually the core of all these angels. Remember, they've got power balls here, others also have them somewhere, here. And it was also said somewhere before in the anime that humans have the angels have these human DNA in them. So my theory was that when the angel is first developing, the power core forms the first, and the body evolves around it, basically. Now, we could see it in this egg. In the case of this one, the egg did not evolve into a power core, but remained neotenic. It was like a tadpole that never evolved into a frog, but always remained as a tadpole. And it took up and matured in this human form and came about to do its evil deed. Whatever. So, that's it, guys. We reached the end of our adventure at Nerve. At the end, everybody died. Human instrumentality project began. Shinji was a spineless loser. He hated himself so much that he caused all of the world to melt into Fanta or Capri Sun. This is, by the way, the actual end of this series. I'm dropping spoilers because I really don't care. This series is so nice. It's got so well fleshed out characters that you always imagine yourself living with them or interacting with them or in other ways. But anyways, that's one of the strengths of Neon Genesis Evangelion. And I was there. I was working with Nerve. I gave him my all. But in the end, it wasn't enough. I died. I melted into Tang. And I woke up in Istanbul in a parallel universe. I was like, oh, what a fucking dream it was. I was classificationist. I was a classification expert for angels in a goddamn lab in Japan. Tokyo 3. I met these interesting people, but they were all flawed in some way. And it was just a hell of a ride, man. Let me get some coffee. But anyways, let's do a final act here. And let's give these clades names, just for entertainment's sake. We classify the angels, and let's give them overarching family names, just for the heck of it. This is more or less how cladistics work. Of course, in cladistics, the organisms reproduce, so you have family trees. Here, the angels don't reproduce, but they seem to come from these core forms and assume one of these groups as they manifest themselves. So now we have core forms, and Kaworu was basically a neotenic core form. And they start out as human beings, but grow into this power core, which goes on either to assume this biomorphic shape, this major clade, or this eye-bearing, artificial-looking form. And this family I named Oculophoridae. And then there's this other group called Paramateriata, which is paramaterial angels. They're either from another dimension or they are psychic. And then we have parasitomorphs. Now, back in Nerve, I suggested them maybe you could use like parasitomorphs, like a disease, to combat other angels and so on and so forth. That was my work there. Now, let's go into subgroupings. So, in biomorphs, these guys, the warrior angels, I classified them as Tengu forms. Tengu angels, warrior angels. This one was an aquatic Tengu form, much like a walrus is an aquatic carnivore. Then we have these guys, more like clunky looking floating types, and I call them Levitamorpha, levitating angels. And then you got these more animal type ones, and I call them Cambrianoids, after the Cambrian explosion. The oculophorid group really needed no other sub-classification, so it remained as it was. In the paramaterial angels, I classified Leliel as a negative form, like negative form. And I classified these guys as Luciferans, light bearers, because they're glowing and they're all made out of light and they're psychically active. Now, we all did this for the laughs, of course, but here I want to give you a little lesson, or like a takeaway story. This is how research and classification can be fun. It can be something as niche as Neon Genesis Evangelion angels, but everything in life, it's more rewarding if you try to find parallelisms, group them into things, and research, look at things as categories, and then you can really make really amazing investigations and just add color and value and a really nice sense of achievement to your life. And you could do this with everything, really. And in fact, if you're like, I'm sure this podcast will attract some young viewers who are new to this channel. If you're like still going to school, yeah, Neon Genesis Evangelion, it's fun, but try to study zoology or art history, and you could really open your eyes to entire new worlds. Always try to study whatever you're studying as a hobby or for work. Always try to look at outliers and try to see patterns between them and other things. And that's, I believe, in my personal opinion, is the key to a curious mind. I hope you enjoyed this, guys and gals. I hope you enjoyed Neon Genesis Evangelion. It's really a nice series. You really want to immerse yourself in that reality. And thanks for watching. Please comment below and let me know what you think. If you're a badass Neon Genesis Evangelion fan and I'm just a newbie who saw this on Netflix. And if you think I made mistakes, just let me know. And if you got other suggestions about how these angels could be classified, also let me know. And also, try, please, if you can, to support me on Patreon. Because these friends have, and thanks to them, I make a little money on the side, and it always helps, especially in this day and age, this coronavirus day and age. I appreciate even if you donate $1 a month, it really makes a difference for me. So, thank you everyone. This was the Kosemenite take on Neon Genesis Evangelion. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a good day. I hope you pull through in these difficult times with death, disease, and social unrest. And it doesn't look like it's gonna get better soon, guys and gals, so keep safe, Also, this was a really nice show, man. These characters, congratulations. I mean, I bow down before the creators of this series. So that was that. Have a nice time, and I love you all. Goodbye.